I gotta give a big ol' shout out to my subscriber Connor for being my very first patron. Thank you, bro. Now let's get into the video. What is up, my dashing dudes? I am the Hans TV, and I hope that y'all are ready for some professionalism in this one. It's time for r/ProRevenge. First post for the day comes from Zeter. A client refused to pay, so I had some fun. When I have the time and come across interesting projects or clients, I take on one-off assignments to create websites, graphics, applications, etc. for said clients. I recently had a client for whom I created a website. Their old website looked like it was created in the early 90s, but it drew a lot of traffic, so the need to update was clear. Like always, we first agreed on the scope and design, and my client showcased his competitors' websites for me, explaining what kinds of things he absolutely wanted for his site, but better, as he put it. I then had him sign a standard contract and pay a small upfront fee. Everything went smoothly and I got to work. After the project finished and I sent him an invoice, he told me that he won't be paying anymore. During the few days that I had worked, he had watched some YouTube videos about creating websites, and he had come to the realization that he, without any prior experience in web design or programming, could create an equally impressive site in pretty much the same time as I had, and so he didn't feel like he should be paying me anything extra. I reminded him of our contract, and he flat out said that I am free to take him to court, but he won't be paying me. Obviously, I had no intention of taking him to court because it would result in more headache than it'd be worth, but I wasn't just going to let this slide. The website was already live and teeming with visitors, but my client, although they were a newfound web design professional, hadn't realized that I was still the only one who had access to the site's back end, which meant that I could make any changes to the site and he couldn't do anything about it. So, I remembered how he had told me about all of his competitors' websites. I figured the appropriate response would be to write a script that replaces his company's contact details and opening hours with those of his competitors. Every time the site would load, the script would randomly show one of the competitors' contact details instead. I also made it so that the contact from requests would be sent to a randomly selected competitor's email. I chose not to inform my client of this and went on to enjoy my vacation. Within a week, I received several emails and a call about my client's concerns that something was wrong, that he hadn't received a new client through the site in almost a week, even though the site's visitor count is much higher than before, thanks to the new design and improved SEO that he hadn't yet paid for. I let him know what I had done and I told him that I would undo it, but it would take me about an hour, for which I would be charging. Since I was on vacation, I'd apply the rush fee stated on the contract for that hour. And, of course, I told him that this would all be added on top of the original fee that he owed me, plus interest for late payment. Naturally, this led to insults and threats being thrown in my direction, to which I calmly responded that I will begin work once I have the money on my account, and if he doesn't want to lose any more customers to his competitors, he'd best man up quick. He tried to call me immediately, and I just declined the call. After the second attempt to call me again, I sent him directly to voicemail. I received an express payment to my account the very next morning. Edit. Added details below about the legality of the situation that some have asked about. The client's old 90s style website was running on a similarly outdated legacy hosting patch. As such, I had convinced him to update his hosting provider in the process, so I had paid for the hosting and set up the new site on that server. I did not touch the old site at any point. After I was done with the site, I showed it to the client who was happy with it and told me to redirect his domain to the new server. To do this, he gave me the login details to the site where he hosted his domain. I logged in, redirected the domain, and logged out. Then, after it came clear that my client hadn't paid me and told me that he wouldn't pay me, all I did was modify the code that I had written. That was on the server that I had set up, that the contract stated would be my property until the final payment was made. As my client didn't pay, I merely edited code that I owned, on a server that I owned. He could have gone and redirected his domain back to his old server at any point, but even after his newfound web development expertise, didn't know or care how to do. The only thing that was illegal was my client refusing to uphold the contract and pay me for the work that I had done for him. From my experience, I feel like this one should have fallen more under malicious compliance, but y'all let me know what y'all think down in the comments below. Our next post comes from Here to Judge You. Cheating ex came crying that I had ruined relationships for him, so I ruined his relationship. I don't know if this is the right sub for this. If it's not, I'm sorry. I was with this guy for a while until he cheated on me when I went to visit my family for my birthday. He was really nasty about it too. I found a condom wrapper, which we weren't using, and confronted him. But he started gaslighting me, telling me he had been there since before we were together and that I was being paranoid. I wanted to believe him, but deep down inside, I knew that I didn't. One day, he brought me back my spare notebook, which I was letting him use until he had enough savings to get his own. He was so stupid that he hadn't even logged out of Facebook. I checked his messages on the day after my birthday and found out he had indeed cheated on me. I confronted him, and after initially lying to me again and calling me crazy, he eventually broke down, crying and begging. Needless to say that I dumped his ass that same night. But he saw himself as the victim in this whole story, and complained to all of his friends about me breaking off contact with him when he was supposedly so in love with me. About a year later, I was swiping on Tinder when I saw him on there. I had been told he was in a relationship, and so I went to check his Facebook. Turns out that he not only was in a relationship, but he had cropped his girlfriend out of a picture he was using on Tinder. Even though I had not talked to him in a year, I had a feeling this might one day come in handy. So I took some screenshots and left swiped to get him out of my face. To my surprise, about half a year later, I get a series of weird 4 a.m. texts from him. He's saying that he changed after our relationship and that I broke his heart so bad that now he has issues in his current relationship, and that's somehow my fault. Of course, this is a whole load of BS, since he was the one who cheated, but this is just the type of person he is. Nothing is ever his fault. I was going to answer, "You cheated on me, you POS," but then I remembered the screenshots. I go to his Facebook and see that he still has the profile picture with his girlfriend, and so I did the only thing any reasonable person would do, and sent her the screenshots along with the message, "I don't know what he told you, but I want you to know that he cheated on me." I later found out that she dumped him too. I'll just say this as an observable fact from relationships I've been in: once a cheater, always a cheater. Our final post for the day comes from Zizor14. Spread rumors behind someone's back? Get removed from existence. This story is very high school, but I figured I'd share it. Way back in 2010, I was a sophomore in high school. I was pretty lonely and awkward, but I had this one person from school who had came out of nowhere into my DMs and we became instant friends. She was super awkward just like me, and we hung out at school all the time and talked on the phone for hours at a time regularly. However, she started acting weird when I would ask to hang out outside of school. She would tell me that her strict parents wouldn't like it that she was hanging out with a boy, so I laid off and tried not to think much of it. As time went on, I developed feelings for her, so much so that a few others encouraged me to ask her out to prom. I worked up the courage to ask her. She said no, again because her parents wouldn't like it. I was pretty upset, but got over it because I still wanted to be her friend. As time went on, I got over my feelings for her and remained a good friend. One of the ways I tend to show my feelings, romantic or platonic, is sharing items with people that I think are special. I'll let her borrow some of my favorite Pokemon games, Pearl and Soul Silver, and a Pokeball flashlight that I'd had since kindergarten. She took them and barely used them, but it didn't matter to me much because I figured that she understood how important they were to me, and herself by extension. Fast forward to early 2012. My senior year. People still didn't exactly like me, but I had a close group of very sweet friends. I had started dating someone else at this point, was accepted to college, was on the yearbook team, and was pretty happy in general. One day my girlfriend asked me why I'd been friends with this other girl for so long. I asked why, and she told me that for years this girl had been telling people behind my back that I had been stalking her, calling her in the middle of the night, and repeatedly asking her out. I was shocked. I asked her about it, and she blew up at me and accused me of trying to make her look bad. She then told me that, "Do you honestly think anyone will remember your story about me anyway? No one cares except me. So think about that before you throw your best friend away." I was very upset, but I was just ready to be done with the situation. I didn't want to see her again. I asked for the items I had given her back, but she refused at first. I eventually demanded that she give my stuff, or I would tell everyone what she had done. She complied, but only with my childhood flashlight, which she returned, broken. I never got the games back. At this point, I broke off contact. I was depressed for a long while, and I contemplated what I should do. I was in yearbook that year as the index editor, which essentially meant I had to go through the book and find every instance of a student's name and add it to the index along with the pages they appeared. I saw a lot of her while going page to page, as she was in a lot of school groups and candid images. I then thought of something I'm not exactly proud of. I decided to remove every instance of her in the yearbook, official class image and all. I was the last student to see the yearbook before it would be sent off to be printed, so not even the main editor would notice the missing person. The teacher in charge wouldn't catch it either, as they would just give it a once-over before submitting the order. I also had enough bare-bones Photoshop skills to cut her out of club images, and so that's what I did. Each instance was erased, and the gaps filled to make it look as natural as possible. A couple of hours of work later, and she was gone from the year 2011 to 2012, and so she ended that year looking through her yearbook, thinking she wasn't important enough to be remembered or cared about by anyone, just like she said I would. Now that's what I call pro-revenge, doing exactly to her what she said would happen to you. Good job, OP. Good job. Well, alright my dashing dudes, that is going to do it for today's episode of r/pro-revenge. I hope that you liked the stories. If you did, I'll leave them down in the description as always. And if you liked the video, feel free to drop a subscribe, a like, and a comment down below what you'd like to see me read next. Again, another humongous shout out to Connor for being my very first patron. And I thank all of you who have subscribed in the past few weeks. It's really humbling and I love to see that y'all are loving my work. But with that being said, I will see you in the next video.